Hi, Mark Gilbert here. This video is entitled From Isolation to Unity. There's essentially only one key point I want to make with you, and that is that every moment of every day in our lives, we have a choice. It's how we show up and how we see this world around us. We can either choose to see ourselves as separate and isolated from everything else, or we can see ourselves as part of a vast and beautiful mosaic of unity and oneness with everything else. The choices we then make in every moment are driven by how we see our lives. Are we separate and apart and isolated, or are we united? That's the key point. This was driven home for me recently when, as part of some work I'm doing with the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, we came across an undiscovered and unknown radio recording of Ernest Holmes from 1951, where he did a talk called God is My Silent Partner. And below in the show link, I've got a link to the transcription of this recently discovered program, and I would invite you to check it out. But what I'd like to do is just read an excerpt with you for the next few minutes, just to give you sort of an idea of what Holmes felt like back in 1951 when this program was recorded. In it, he said, "Too often we think of ourselves as isolated and alone, with the whole burden of existence resting on our shoulders. Too seldom do we realize that our partnership with the infinite spirit is real, and too seldom we realize the importance that each of us has in the whole scheme of things. I have great respect for the individual life. I believe that no restraint should be placed on it other than those necessary to society. This country of ours," speaking of the U.S., "is built on the concept that many people shall live together in a spiritual unity, expressing themselves in individual ways, but joining all others in a common purpose. This is the meaning of democracy. And democracy certainly is a God-inspired idea, a divine pattern which includes each one of us, first as individuals and next as groups. But our first allegiance is to God, or Spirit, or divine intelligence, if you wish, who has created us. This should be our first and fundamental recognition of the meaning of life. Our second allegiance is to society, starting with those around us, and it should be our endeavor under divine guidance to do our best to be helpful and to become an active part of this great nation of ours. Each must take his rightful place in the world in which he lives. You and I have social and political and world obligations because we're part of the world. Each would be necessary and must be necessary, or God would not have put him here." Well, if our first duty is to God, and we believe that God is love, then it follows that we should love people and see the divine in them. Let us try our best we can to be helpful and kind, considerate and honest with each other, and because we are human beings, all of us are subject to making mistakes. We should overlook each other's shortcomings and reach back to the presence of God in everyone. Let us start asking ourselves this question daily: am I kind? Am I considerate? Am I loving? And am I trustful? Am I simple and sincere? Am I attending to every duty, whether I call it civic or intellectual or political? If I believe in the good, do I support it? If I believe that God is the final power, do I have faith in God? If I believe that all humanity is one, do I consider the good of my neighbor equal to my own? Am I entering into all the social activities that make for a better world? Do I vote in every election, thus safeguarding the right of citizenship? Do I pray for divine guidance, asking that I shall be led to think and act in the most intelligent and the most constructive manner? Beautiful words and a beautiful reminder for us in the 21st century in terms of how do we look at our lives and our role and how we show up in the vast array of relationships in which we exist. and as Holmes calls us to see, is to anchor ourselves in the unity of knowing that we are anchored in the divine, in God, in that oneness. And from that, we recognize that we have a responsibility to bring the love of the divine into our relationship with all that exists. If everything that we see is actually a part of us, and we are a part of it, and we are all part of a vast interconnected oneness, then does it not call our hearts to be open to compassion and love and care and concern? What Holmes is really talking about in this excerpt that I read to you is about us asking and taking personal responsibility in each moment to step away from the sense of isolation and separation that we feel each day in this crazy world in which we seem to live, to see and anchor ourselves in the unity of all it is, and take hold of our own personal responsibility to build that sense of unity in the daily choices and the daily steps we take in our behavior with each other. So, what are you doing in every moment? Are you choosing to see yourself as isolated, or are you choosing yourself to be united in this beautiful world that we're in? Which world do you want? I hope this video has been beneficial to you, and as always, I would certainly appreciate it if you would leave a comment, a thumbs up, and certainly subscribe to the channel. It helps us get these videos out in a much broader way. Thank you for listening.